Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to week 4 of this layout build. I have a lot of work ahead of me this week, so let's turn the camera around and take a look and see what I have to do. If you are watching last time, you may recall that most of the rough landforms have been carved. I still have about 4 feet to go at this end of the layout. Once that's done, it'll be time to get the plaster and the sculpt mold out and to get sticky. It looks like one of the other guys was in over the weekend. A lot of switch machines have been installed in the area, which is great news. It's great progress. In fact, it looks like he's done all of them in this area. They haven't been cut off the length yet, so I'm going to have to be careful not to stab myself, and also to make sure that I don't damage anything. So I'm just going to get busy and I will check in with you again later. Well, I've been here about 2 hours and I've got the rest of it carved to shape. Before I start slinging plaster and making everything sticky, I need to mask off the track. So let me find some tape and I will check in with you again later. Well, as you can see, I have masked off all the track. I have removed the bridge and masked the piers, and I'm all set up ready for putting the plaster cloth on. I've cut up several rolls into 3 different sizes just to give me a choice, and I got this drywall mud pan for the water. That's all I need to get busy, so let's get on with it. Well, here is the layout with all the plaster gauze in place. Next thing I have to do is start casting and carving about 100 pounds of plaster of Paris. There are some damaged turnouts at this end of the layout, so I am going to start work from the other end while Bill works on the turnouts. So I'm going to turn the camera off now and I will check in with you again later. Well, I worked a few extra hours today and I have most of the rock carving done on the left half of the layout. This gap here being the halfway point where the sections split. This section, the cliffs are even taller, so I guess that means I am a lot less than halfway there. Anyway, earlier today the bridges for this valley arrived. So tomorrow morning, before I get the plaster out, I'm going to build abutments for them. Well, it's Wednesday afternoon and progress has been slow today as far as the scenery is concerned, because I spent most of this morning working on these bridges. They are from Atlas. Here's the box one of them came in. They're very basic. but they're cheap. The outside detail is pretty good. There is no detail whatsoever on the inside of the girders or underneath. So on a high-class model you would need to buy extra bridges to cut the girders off so you can double up the detailed part on the inside. They actually come with track, but I already had track laid across the river, so I pulled the original track out. I put a styrene spacer in under these and glued it in, because where the track is supposed to go, it's too low down. Typically on a prototype ballasted deck girder bridge, the rail head is round about halfway up the girders by the time you've got the floor system and a decent thickness of ballast. The abutments I made exactly the same as I did on the big bridge at the back of the layout. Anyway, these are now installed and I'm ready to get back to the scenery again. Well, it is now almost 8 o'clock and it's time to go home. I've got quite a lot of plaster work done this afternoon. After the slow start with the bridges, I think it's more than I expected to finish. I've gone all the way from about here to where you see the end of the plaster. With any luck I should be able to finish the carving tomorrow and still have time to get the initial washes on. Well, after 3 long days, all the rock carving is done. That is a lot of plaster there. I used 4.5 25-pound bags, so at least 110 pounds of plaster. And towards the end of it, I'd had enough. I just have the bits at the benchwork joint to do on site. It's almost time to go home. Actually, it was time to go home an hour ago. But before I leave, I want to get the initial wash colours on so that I can dry brush it and put ground cover in tomorrow. So let me see if I can find some black wash and some dark brown wash, and I will check in with you again later. Well, it has taken me exactly an hour to do the black wash over everything. Next I've got to go back and do the dark brown wash. That doesn't take as long, partially because I don't have to soak the plaster beforehand, and partially because I'm not going for all over coverage. I'm only doing it intermittently. Typically what I do is I go and I fill in the bits that don't look to be dark enough to me and leave the dark bits as they are. That way I end up with a variety of brown and grey tones in the finished product. Well, I knew that wasn't going to take anywhere near as long. The brown wash took about 12 minutes from end to end, so approximately 20% of the time that I spent on the black wash. As you can probably see, the colour is a lot more variable now. I've got some areas that are much darker than others and some areas that are much browner, while others are going to be grey. At the moment everything will look a little bit on the dark side. It will lighten up once I've got 3 or 4 dry brushes on it. That will be a task for tomorrow. So I'm just going to pan down the length of the layout one more time, and then it is time to go home. It's Saturday morning. I've been here for a couple of hours and I've got all the dry brushing done on the whole 16 feet. Normally I use these apple barrel paints, granite grey and white, but I found some this morning in James's kit by Craftsman. The one is simply labelled grey, and it's a very nice grey. It's very similar to the granite, but it's slightly warmer, and vanilla, which is not quite white, and I use those and I think they look better. I think I prefer them to the old colours, so in future I'm going to be buying those instead. I used an entire bottle of the grey and probably half a bottle of the vanilla. Next step is to get out the sculptor mould and fill in the dirt areas. Well, a few more hours have passed and I have done the sculptor mould step over the entire area, apart from this joint in the middle, of course. I did ask for dark brown paint to mix in with it, and what they gave me was like a really light tan, so I had to use it. It's all that was available. It's a lot better than nothing at all. It's basically all going to be covered with dirt anyway, and it's a lot better than just stark white sculptor mould on the odd area that doesn't get covered. Anyway, the next thing I've got to do is run off and find the dirt. I don't know where he keeps it, and unfortunately nobody came into the shop this morning, so I'm on my own. Let me head off and see what I can find. Well, I have now got all the dirt areas covered. I used a mixture of chocolate brown and red cedar, putting the chocolate brown down first and then just sprinkling the red cedar on lightly on top of it. Anyway, I have to take back what I said earlier about the light tan paint being better for mixing into the sculptor mould than nothing. It wasn't. I really needed a dark brown like I asked for. The light tan was the nearest they had available, and it looks absolutely hideous wherever it shows through. So I've had to put a lot more dirt on than I would normally use, which is of course wasteful. But worse than that, wherever the edge shows through, I'm going to have to go back and paint it later. Don't have time to do it now. So that is an extra laborious step that I didn't want to have to do. So we live and learn. Anyway, the next step is to get some greenery on it. I have a variety of different shades of fine ground foam, ranging from a yellow through a dirt through various shades of green, and I've just thrown them all together in a bucket, deliberately not mixed it very well. That step's going to take the rest of the day, not because it takes very long to put the ground cover down. It doesn't, it only takes a few minutes, but getting it glued is going to take forever. There is something like 50 square feet of bench work here. Now I take that back. There is 44 square feet of bench work here, and probably more than half of that has to be covered with ground foam, and every square inch has to be glued down. Well, all the basic ground cover is done, and that is about all I have time for today. At some point I will have to come back and give it a bit more variation, but I'll do that when I plant the trees and ballast the track and put in all the retaining walls and the culverts and stuff like that, and weather the bridges. So there's still quite a lot of work to do, but that will probably all have to be done on site, because tomorrow I am heading off to work on another layout, and then this is due to be packed up and shipped off the day I get back. So I guess that is all for this week's video. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.